I am Colleen McKeon. We are at Adventure Aquarium, and I am a biologist.
Hello, I'm John Rossi. I'm a touring drummer with a passion for animal conservation. When I'm on the road, I spend as much time as possible visiting zoos, aquariums, and conservation organizations. Now, I want to share those places with you. I'll be talking to keepers, vets, conservationists, anyone who can help me in my mission of connecting my people to animals through their people. Join me on my Rossifari. Welcome. Hello. Hi. Welcome back to another exciting episode of the Rossifari podcast. Y'all, this is one of those episodes where I get to go back to a place that you've heard from before and launch a new series with some new people, and I'm really excited about it. Going back to my hometown aquarium, y'all. Okay, technically it's in a different state, but it's also my hometown aquarium. I'm talking, of course, about Adventure Aquarium in Camden, New Jersey. Now, I live right outside of Philadelphia, and if you don't know this, Philadelphia and New Jersey, specifically Camden, New Jersey, are right across the water from each other. So even though it's technically a different city, it's kind of the home aquarium of Philadelphia. It's actually, fun fact, where Gritty hatched, the incredibly popular Philadelphia Flyers mascot. It was a whole big to-do, and it was actually very cool. And so, yeah, I have a lot of love and respect for the whole crew at Adventure Aquarium. I am a member there, and I love having a connection with this team. And over the next couple weeks, I'm going to introduce you to some pretty amazing people from Adventure Aquarium, starting this week with Colleen McKeon. And she's an incredible biologist who, when I first reached out to Lauren, who is the PR person and a good friend of mine and helps me get these interviews going, she recommended talking to Colleen about frogs. So, of course, like every interview that I do when I'm told a specific topic, we dive into all kinds of other stuff. And then, more than halfway through the interview, we finally get to the frogs. But it's a really fun chat with some really interesting stuff in it. And we talk about some really amazing animals. And also we talk about what the team culture is like at Adventure Aquarium, which I think is really important, especially for people in the industry to be listening to and learning from and seeing how teams work at different places. So I'm excited to bring all of that to y'all, but I have a confession. I've mentioned this on the podcast time and again, but I keep musician hours, which are generally very late hours. And aquarists and biologists and zookeepers, they keep very early hours. And so when I got to Adventure Aquarium at the crack of dawn, okay, it wasn't really the crack of dawn, but in my book, it was the crack of dawn. I was exhausted, y'all. And I thought about cutting some of this, but you're gonna get a good laugh at the beginning of this interview because I was so tired. I make such a fool of myself. And the funniest thing about it to me is I know so many people who work at Adventure Aquarium. But before this, I did not know Colleen. And I instantly made a fool of myself in front of her. So that was fun for me. But I hope it is fun for y'all to listen to that. Before we get to the interview, just a couple of quick things. Please make sure that you hit subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes of my interviews or of Rossifari Zoo News. Also, make sure you're following along online. We're on, social media galore at Rossifari or TikTok at Rossifari Pod. And you can support the pod by becoming a patron for as little as $3 a month. And something that you get if you do that is bonus audio from some of the episodes, including this one. We did a little extra interview with Colleen talking about some additional animals at the aquarium, and it was a good time. I think y'all will enjoy it. So I highly recommend going to patreon.com/Rossifari and becoming a patron of the pod. And with that said, it is time to get to it. So without further ado, here is my interview with Colleen McKeon of Adventure Aquarium. Awesome. And how long have you been here?
Just about 4 years.
Okay, cool. And so I love Adventure Aquarium. It's nice to be back here doing some more episodes. How long have you been here?
So
I just asked you that.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Did I mention I didn't sleep much last night? I'm leaving that in the pod. It's one of those days. What I meant to ask was, what is your story of getting here? I literally just, my brain.
So I have a fun route how I got to where I am.
Excellent.
I kind of started out as a dive volunteer back in 2019. So I was kind of a dive volunteer. So I got to dive in Ocean Realm all the time and kind of help out with the maintenance in there and doing the dive shows.
Okay, so before you get any further, I'm curious about something. Okay, so you start off as a dive volunteer, right?
Mm-hmm.
How did you find out, A, that you could be a dive volunteer, and B, like, why were you a diver? Because clearly you have to be a diver to be a dive volunteer. I've asked Lauren multiple times if I can just dive in there, and she keeps telling me to stop emailing her at 3 a.m. I don't know. But anyway, so yeah, tell me things.
So I had gotten dive certified when I was in college because I knew this was the field that I wanted to be in. So I knew I had to have that kind of certification. And then I actually had some of my college friends. We dove at the Baltimore Aquarium, at National Aquarium. So they have a excursion that you can kind of like pay for. So we did that. And the dive master there said, "Oh, I volunteer at the Camden Aquarium." And I said, "Oh, I'm actually not from Maryland. I'm from Pennsylvania. That's really close to me." So he got me in contact with the head of our Center for Aquatic Sciences, where we volunteer through. So I kind of got my name up on that list. And then after a few months, they kind of contacted me and said, "Hey, we would love to get you in so I can start diving here," which was super fun.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. That's very cool. And so then you started as a dive volunteer and?
Yes. And then they had an open position for a part-time dive technician. So I was like, oh, well, I kind of know what's going on here and I really want to join the team. So I became a part-time dive tech, kind of overseeing then the volunteers and helping them get in the water and kind of being that safety person for them. Nice. And then once they had a biologist aid position open, kind of jumped ship onto the husbandry team and then kind of worked my way up. I was also a biologist aid on the bird and mammal team for a little bit. So I kind of got the train on both sides of husbandry, which was really cool. And now I'm a biologist one on the fish and invertebrate team.
Very cool. And so I guess, like, you know, one thing that I'm kind of curious about when I hear stories like this is like you've just been at this one facility that whole time, right?
Yeah.
And you keep growing. Is that something that you find is common here, that you're able to really grow and chart your own path a little bit through that?
Yeah, definitely. Especially when you're a volunteer with us, we get to already see how you work with the team. That's really big for us, and just how you work in general. So when we see that you're already a really hard worker and this is what you want to do and what you want to be in, it really helps out. That's
really cool. So many times when I talk to people, their story is, you know, well, I wanted to do this job. And so I got an internship in Boise, and then I went to Indianapolis, and then I went to San Diego, and then I went to Philly, and then I went to, and it's just cool that you're just like here and growing.
Well, I did have a few other internships while I was still in school at the Salisbury Zoo down in Maryland, and I was also at the Philadelphia Zoo for a bit too.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, internships, it makes a lot of sense, but to actually be able to like
my first job is
really cool.
It's awesome.
Nice. Very cool. So what school did you go to and what did you study?
I went to Salisbury University down in Salisbury, Maryland, and I studied biology and environmental science.
All right, cool. And you learned to dive and you ended up here, and now you're on fish and invertebrates.
Yes.
All right. So what was the dream animal, or what is the dream animal?
A long time ago when I wanted to get into this field, it used to be dolphins, but then I just realized the field is just hard enough itself to get in. So I was kind of like, you know, I'll kind of take whatever I can get. And then I had an internship down in Florida working with sharks. And that's when I kind of was like, I love sharks. I would love to work somewhere with sharks. So just really kind of getting whatever I can take.
That's fair.
It's always fun to learn about everyone.
So what was it like diving into an exhibit for the first time?
It was kind of crazy. It was just kind of like a different place because you don't know like how the animals really act yet when it's your first time in there. But then you realize that they're used to people being in there all the time. So you just kind of get comfortable pretty quickly. So they're kind of just going to breeze by you, check you out, and then just keep on swimming. So
I mean, except for some of the sea turtles here who I have seen messing with divers a little bit.
There's only a few of them that might just body slam you. But
I love the turts here so much.
Yeah.
So, cool. Tell me about some of the animals that you work with now.
Right now, I currently work with our octopus, our stingray touch pool, our shark touch pool, and then we have a few turtles. So like our terrapins, our common snapping turtle, and our snakeneck turtles.
Okay. So even though that wasn't at all what we were supposed to talk about today, I like going off script. We need to talk about the turts because first of all, turtles are one of my favorites in general, but also that little turtle row right there that you just described. It just makes me so happy. So those 3 exhibits, for those listening, are all in a row. And it's just this little slice of turtle heaven that way too many people run by because then there's a kookaburra and the little blue penguins. And like, I get it, but also turtles are awesome.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the turtles. You've got to tell me about the terps to start with, because not only are diamondback terrapins one of my favorite species, but they just seem really personable. Like these personalities seem big.
Yes. Yeah. They have quickly grown on me. Just like when you open their back door and they just kind of do a little plip, ploop, plip, ploop right over to you because they just want to come over and say hi and just usually get food, but just say hi too.
Say hi. Yeah, say hi. What are they like? How do they interact? Is there two in there? And like, just tell me everything.
Yes, we have two male terrapins, so they're usually pretty laid back. They do like to sleep a lot during the day, but we do have that log up there for them, so they will kind of come out and bask, which is always cute to see them doing. But they're usually pretty laid back. Like I kind of get into the exhibit and kind of stand in the water when I'm cleaning in there, and they don't really bother me. They just kind of swim around me. They're not really coming after me or anything. They're very, very chill.
That's cool. I didn't picture that exhibit as one that you would stand in.
Yep, that and the snake neck exhibit.
Okay, like it's a good size exhibit for the animals, but I can't picture you standing in there. That's really cool.
It has a very tall ceiling for that one, clearly. So I can kind of stand up straight. The snake necks, I'm a little hunched in there.
That's awesome. I just want to walk by sometime and just see a human standing in that exhibit.
Yeah.
That's great. Cool. Yeah, and then the snake necks, what are they like?
They're a little more timid. So kind of if you're in there cleaning and doing things, they're kind of more hidden in the back, but they do come up to the front of the window when I'm checking in on them and kind of just staring right at you and you make eye contact. And it's kind of that feeling like, you know who I am.
That's cool. Oh, I actually had one other question for the diamondback terrapins.
Yeah.
I know that in the wild, they live in brackish water, but that in captivity, they can live in fresh or brackish or salt. They're like one of these weird adaptive species. So what kind of water do you guys use for the diamondback terrapins?
So we have our system. It's brackish.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. All right. I was just curious. They're such a weird turtle species in so many ways, from their coloration to living in brackish water, but also being able to thrive in other water systems. It's very weird. Cool. And then tell me about your snapping turtle.
So his name is Snaps, accordingly.
Wow. Oh, I remember this from the last episodes here. Y'all are kind of bad at naming things. No, I'm kidding.
Yes. Just a little.
Bad isn't the right word, but yeah.
Yeah. Snaps is very curious. He always will kind of come up to you and check you out. He does intimidate me a little bit. So I've been working on target training him again recently, so kind of bringing back his little target to feed him.
Nice.
So we do tongue feed him, so he doesn't get too close to my fingers.
Oh man. Yeah, I can see that. And I'm assuming you don't stand in that exhibit.
No, that is one that we don't go in.
Very smart. And yeah, so when you're training turtles, so since you didn't like come up with turtles per se, I know that you studied this stuff, but was it kind of a weird thing at first to be like, okay, I'm going to target train a turtle?
Yes, it does seem kind of odd at first, but just kind of position them to like where you want or like where they usually go to now associate that spot with a symbol or a target, things like that. It kind of makes it a little easier to start getting them used to that, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. Very cool. And then, so we'll move on from the turtles, even though I don't want to because I love them. But you mentioned that you work with Octopus.
Yes.
So how long have you been working with Octopus here?
Just since March, so about 2 months.
Okay. So have you only worked with Charlie or have you worked with other ones as well?
Just with Charlie. I've had interactions with our past octopuses, but I've really only worked with Charlie.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I've spent some time back there with Jupiter in the past.
Yes,
but yeah, I miss Jupiter. But okay, so
I started with Gamora Nebula.
Oh, okay, cool, very cool. All right, so tell me about Charlie. Charlie
has been a little grumpy lately. They will shed their suction cups, so sometimes they'll kind of be a little more sensitive, kind of like how we shed our skin. She's kind of been tucked away this past week, but usually very, very social. We actually don't know the gender of Charlie since they are missing that third right arm, just a portion of it. So it's kind of how the very tip of it will not have suction cups. So that's how you would know it's a male. If it has suction cups all the way to the end, it is a female. But since they are missing that portion, we don't actually know if it's a boy or girl, but we treat Charlie just the same.
That's fascinating. Will you ever know? Is it like turtles where it becomes more obvious over time, or is that just something that we just won't know?
We could kind of do something like a blood test, but there's not really anywhere that does that specifically for octopuses.
I can't believe that there's not a gender reveal party for octopodes yet.
Right.
That's so sad.
Yeah. We could know eventually. So if like they happen to lay eggs, obviously it's a female. But otherwise we just might not know until we do a necropsy. If they ever pass away, we would kind of see what kind of organs they have inside.
Makes sense. If they ever pass away, that is some optimism, especially with the species that is not particularly long-lived normally. But all right, Charlie, the non-gendered eternal octopus. Yes. I like it.
For here forever.
So, it's been a while since we've actually gotten to talk about an octopus on the podcast. And so I've got a ton of new listeners lately. And so I kind of just want you to go into like what it's like taking care of Charlie. And I mean, I know there's a lot of intellect there. Mm-hmm. I know there's a lot of need for stimulation and enrichment. Can you just really go deep on all of that?
Sure. So octopuses have pretty much the mental capacity of a 5-year-old. So you kind of got to keep them occupied and kind of always give them different enrichment items to kind of keep them a little stimulated. So we have a bunch of different enrichment items. So we'll have things like jars, so like kid puzzles, the little dive rings, just a bunch of different things, even like a string of kelp to kind of change up the environment. So not always just like being and interacting with that enrichment item, just kind of changing the way the habitat looks as well. Even kind of being social because they can taste essentially with all of their suction cups. So just having them meet new people is always something different for them, just interacting. Lately, Charlie has loved the watering can. So just having that feeling of water sprinkling down on her arms, just moving them all around is always fun to watch.
Oh, that's really cool. So talk to me about this tasting people thing, because if you don't know what you're talking about, that sounds creepy.
A little bit.
So, can you explain that a little bit more and talk about like how their memories are with all of that and everything?
Yeah, so kind of just like we can obviously see how people look differently. They can kind of taste people, not really in a sense of biting or anything. But everyone kind of tastes a little bit differently. So especially if you had like just wash your hands with like hand sanitizer and they kind of taste that, they will kind of react and be like, that's kind of gross. I don't want to interact with you now because now you taste bad. But if you kind of had in your hands and just like fish and then you were like, oh, well, now you're fishy. Now you kind of taste good because I can kind of sense that fish that's on them.
Okay, cool. And is it true? I know it's like a online thing, but is it true that like they will, like if they meet you, they will remember you?
Yes.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, I like to think so too.
I guess it's true. You can't really ask them, yo, Charlie, remember this guy from 3 weeks ago? But that makes sense. But their behaviors show that they seem, comfortable with the same people or whatever.
Yeah, because even taking over the octopus exhibit, they were very timid towards me at first. And like I would have their old biologist with me and like they would come right over for her. But kind of like took a few weeks to kind of get used to me and be like, oh, so this is my person. Now this is who's going to take care of me. So it did take a little warming up to do. So I do think they kind of take that little bit of time to remember who is who.
That's so cool. I like that a lot. I remember meeting Jupiter and immediately just like having that thought of like, oh, this is an animal that knows me now. Mm-hmm. And, I meet a lot of cool animals doing this podcast, and that will happen. That will happen with corvids and other animals. But an octopus is just such a weird alien creature that I really remember it like being like, oh yeah, this is weird in the coolest way. Like this is the best kind of weird. So yeah, that's really cool. I want to break away from the animals for a second to talk about Adventure Aquarium. Okay. I know. So I live in Ardmore. So I'm about a half hour away, unless you hit traffic like today. Oh, Philly. But so I come here a lot. I'm a member. And from doing the pod and people liking the pod, who even haven't been on it, I have a lot of friends here now. I know a good portion of the staff. And it seems to me like Adventure Aquarium is really people focused and really team focused. Mm-hmm. And I was wondering if you could talk about your experience being here and with all of that.
Okay. Like what about it?
Just what it's like being a team member here. And I know that this is, I guess the reason I'm bringing this up is that I know that this is the only facility that you've been at, not counting internships, which I think are a whole other conversation. Yes. And so I just want your perspective as someone that hasn't been anywhere else of like how you feel you're treated here, how you feel the team works together here, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think our team works really well together. We're all kind of like a close-knit family since we do so many like different projects and procedures that we just have to like, you always have to trust your team. So we really just trust each other and work together really, really well. We'll always kind of ask each other for help. We're always willing to help each other, kind of checking in with each other throughout the day. Be like, do you need anything done today? I know you're a little busy doing some of these other projects. So yeah, I think we work really well as a team.
That's cool. Yeah, it seems like from the people that I talk to, it always seems like a focus here.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that everywhere.
No,
should be. It very much should be. But yeah, so that's cool. All right. Do you find that a lot of your social life outside of here revolves around here and the people here and that kind of stuff? Or are you a person who, when you get away from work, you get away from work? And both are fine. I don't mean that in a bad way.
Yeah.
Different people need to, and react to work differently.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just curious what your experience is with that.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. I do have some very close friends here, so I will always see them outside of work. We're always talking about not work things outside of work. You go home, you don't always want to talk about work. And since we all kind of live in the close area, that we're all kind of still hang out together.
That's cool. Yeah. Again, that's just something that like I see that online a lot. And I don't see that at a ton of facilities. And frankly, between you, me, and the couple thousand people listening, I know that more and more people, as they're searching for new jobs now, are starting to listen to the podcast to get the vibe of a place.
Yeah.
I've been told that by a lot of keepers and a lot of biologists and stuff. And I just think, like, from my own perspective, just staring at it on Instagram, which can be a total lie.
Yeah.
We all know that. But from what I'm seeing, it really seems like this is a really tight-knit group. And even one thing that I love is that some of the people who I know leave and go off to other jobs are still in the social group, which is something you really don't see at a lot of facilities.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to put that out into the world and have you kind of, comment on that, because I think it's a really beautiful thing.
Yeah.
But enough human crap. Let's get back to animals. So, what are the main invertebrates that you're taking care of?
For the inverts, we do have a lot of like sea stars. We have some urchins. They're kind of like our big ones. We do have some horseshoe crabs as well. Yeah.
Okay.
Kind of the big group of them.
So, with and a lot of those are in touch pools, you were saying, right?
Yes.
Okay. So let's talk touch pools. What is done so that that the animals are okay?
For a lot of like our inverts, we'll kind of have like a sea star rotation and a urchin rotation. So like every 2 months, we'll kind of take some from holding and put them on exhibit, and then take everyone from the exhibit and put them down in holding, kind of give them a little bit of break. We do also usually make sure that our exhibits are kind of big enough that they can kind of go to the middle. So they kind of have, no one can really reach them. It's a little too far unless you're crawling in there.
Which, just to be clear, is not allowed or recommended.
Not allowed.
I'm sure people still try sometimes. And actually, that's something I'm kind of curious about. What is it like, being there as an attendant or whatever you want to call it, when you are in charge of this interactive exhibit and your main focus has to be the welfare of the animals, but also, guests matter. You can't just smack the kid that tries to reach in and grab something, or you probably shouldn't. I don't know. I don't write the policy here. But what is it like, and how do you find that balance?
So I give our guest education team, they're kind of the ones in charge of the attending the touch exhibits. Okay. I give them a lot of credit because they are just so people. And they're just really good at just kind of calmly telling people not to pick up the animal, gently place them back down, only using 2 fingers, being nice and gentle, just kind of using one little finger, kind of right in the like the middle of the animal, kind of right on the arm of a sea star. So they're just really good at telling people nicely.
That's cool. Do you find that they say that most people that interact with the animals want to listen and want to do it the correct way?
No, not always. Sometimes people will just kind of rush over and just like immediately grab something. We're just like, ooh, that's not really polite for the animal. It's not very respectful. So like kind of redirect them and kind of say, oh, this is how like you would want to be like touched and like that. I don't know.
No, that makes sense. I'm just curious. I
I love touch tanks, and I think that interacting with something is going to just increase your passion for it 1,000-fold. But, at the same time, there are reports, all over the world, not just in zoos and aquariums, although also in zoos and aquariums, that, behavior in the last couple of years has gotten worse. And I can tell you as a performer, audiences have lost their dang minds. The stuff that I hear and see from behind the drums is stuff that just a couple of years ago, absolutely not.
Yeah.
And so I'm always kind of curious about that kind of thing, because I do think that the value of an interaction is astronomical. I can getting to interact with a lot of cool things with this podcast. My heart for conservation has grown a million times, and it was already big enough to start this podcast and want to do stuff. But now it's literally to the point where I'm, working on a master's in biology and trying to figure out how else I can make a difference. And even starting to think maybe that means leaving drumming behind to some level, which is something that if you ever told middle school John that, he would have smacked the crap out of you. That has been my passion my entire life. But once you start interacting with things, I think you really do find a deeper connection.
Yeah, definitely.
And so I do think that value is there. But I also, you got to worry about people, because people suck compared to animals. Compared to, non-human animals, I should say. Since technically we are animals. Now that's cool. That makes a lot of sense. And then you do lots with frogs. So let's talk about the frogs.
Alrighty. So I used to not really consider myself a frog person, but that was one of kind of the first exhibits that I got to take care of as a biologist with a gallery. So we do have several different species of frogs. One of my favorites being the milk frogs.
They're so good.
They're so cute. So I really like them. They do have blue mouths on the inside, which a lot of people don't really know.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
That's really cool.
So you usually don't get to see it unless you're kind of doing a feeding with them. So they do have more of a blue, a teal, light in color, but it is a blue mouth.
I already liked them so much, and I did not even know that. That's so cool.
Yes.
All right, so talk more about them, though. Tell everything about them, because I feel like we have not talked frogs much, except for one very specific species, Panamanian golden frogs. So yeah.
So the milk frogs get their name from a milky white substance they will secrete when they are threatened or frightened. So that's kind of where they get their name. They're typically found in the Amazon. They have some nice little fun toe pads that can kind of help with climbing up trees and stuff like that. I think they're very curious. When I had the exhibit, I had 8 on exhibit, and they were just always jumping all over the place, which is always so cute. So they would jump on my arm as I'm doing their little window. And I was like, they're just helping out.
That's awesome. Did you ever experience the fear reaction? The milk stuff, or when they're in captivity, are they pretty, not going to illustrate that?
I'm not really too sure if they've just never done that in captivity, but I have never experienced it.
Gotcha. It's one of those things where I know you would never do anything to actually cause fear or harm to a frog. But at the same time, some animals, you turn that lock and they're like, ah!
Yeah.
I didn't know that was coming.
Spook.
Yeah, you just never know what's going to happen. So I just wasn't sure if you ever, because I've definitely never seen it or knew about it. Apparently, I'm not quite as up on frogs as I am on turtles, but I guess listeners know that. But that's really cool. Yeah, they are really beautiful. I love their eyes too. Can you tell me about their eyes?
Yeah, their eyes are just so big that they just are just locking into your soul pretty much.
That's really what it feels like. And is that just because they're are they hunters or
they are nocturnal.
Oh, okay.
They kind of will have typically bigger eyes when they are nocturnal.
Yeah, see, I did not know that either. I don't got see, it's good that we're doing this, because apparently I'm going to learn about frogs today. That's awesome. So tell me about some other ones.
So we also have Vietnamese mossy frogs. We have a bunch of different species of poison dart frogs. We have White's tree frogs, a little Pac-Man frog, and the Suriname toads.
That is so many frogs. All right, we're going deep. So let's talk about the Pac-Man.
Yes.
Where does the name come from?
So the Pac-Man frog gets its name because it looks like the Pac-Man little yellow guy. They just are little and round. pretty much a little ball and just have this wide mouth. So when it opens up, it looks just like that video game.
That's awesome. And what is the why do they have that adaptation?
So they are ambush predators. So they kind of just sit and wait. So they just want to make sure they get as much as they can in that mouthful.
That's awesome. I think ambush predation is one of the coolest things in the animal kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
This idea of just sitting still and then just yum is just, I don't know. I've always found that fascinating.
The patience too.
Yeah. Especially when you think about frogs, which I mean, I know they can stand still and I know they can try to blend into things in general. But when I think of frogs, I'm not picturing sitting super chill, not moving. A spider, yes.
Yeah.
But a frog, not really. And then here's this frog that's like, do, 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 do. Boom. And that's just really cool to think about. Yeah. And then you said you have tree frogs?
We have the white tree frogs.
Okay.
So they're kind of typically like a greenish teal color, but they can also kind of change to like a grayish brown to kind of blend in with their environment.
Oh, really?
So if you're looking in that exhibit, sometimes they're brown, sometimes they're a little green.
Super did not know that either. And is that just a camouflage technique then? Or
yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Is it an automatic thing, or is it or is it something they have to consciously do? I just know that with chameleons, it's a reaction to what's going on, and they're not blending into colors like a lot of people think so.
Yeah, I would say it's probably more conscious because they don't automatically change when I kind of wake them up or anything.
Okay,
so
that's really interesting, and it's cool that you get to see it exhibited here. Unlike those slacker milk frogs that aren't doing the thing. That's great. And are those the ones with the feet that do the thing? See, I'm very scientific.
Yes.
This is why I play the drums. Can you talk about the feet that do the thing?
I don't know which feet you're talking about.
are the white frogs the ones that climb on the glass? Or am I thinking of something else?
The poison dart frogs do that a lot. And you'll kind of see their little pads in the mist on the acrylic.
Okay, so they're the ones that'll actually climb the acrylic.
Yeah. I mean, they all kind of can. The milk frogs will sometimes also be on the windows. I don't typically see the white street frogs.
See, this, like I said, I don't know frogs, and this is why I edit. All of this will be, this will all, I will not sound like quite an idiot on my podcast.
Yeah, right.
But I like I said, frogs are one of these things that I'm realizing as we talk that I really don't know that well. Mm-hmm. And so it's good to learn those things.
Yeah.
But okay, so you mentioned having poison dart frogs.
Yes.
And I know a fact. I know a frog thing, which is that they get their poison from their diet. Mm-hmm. And so I'm assuming that you don't feed them insects that give them poison.
Correct.
So I assume that your dart frogs are not poisonous.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yep, that's correct.
That's cool. And can they do can their feet do the thing where they stick on acrylic and can climb and all that kind of stuff?
Yep.
Can you explain to me how that is a thing?
Yeah, so they're little toe pads, or I don't really want to call them suction cups, but they are kind of made to help them stick to different surfaces, which kind of helps them even climb trees. And so they can just scale trees and leaves and kind of hang on. So they can also kind of do that with the window because it's nice and smooth. So just kind of make their way up. You'll see the little feet imprints on the mist.
That's adorable. And that's really cool. I'm always amazed to hear stuff like that because when I think of suction cups, I mostly think of suction cups failing. I've tried thand shower caddies that you hang up in the showers, and then you walk in, or more accurately, it's 3 a.m. and something here, and you're like, "What was that?" And it turns out that it's not suctioned anymore. Yeah. And a lot of us try that on tour buses, sticking things to our windows, and then there have been lots of accidents because of that. So are they better at it than human-made suction cups? Have you ever seen a frog just try to walk up acrylic and then just boop?
Yes.
Okay. All right. There we go. Okay. So suction cups just suck is the moral of the story.
Yeah. So they're not that strong, but they do have the ability to just kind of continuously move. But if they kind of way too much, sometimes that force kind of breaks that little suction and they kind of fall. Just like a regular suction cup.
Okay. I was this might be the dumbest question that I've asked today, but also I just know that I have a lot of problems with suction cups. I don't trust them anymore. I don't. So.
Some are better at it than others, but everyone's got to learn.
Interesting. I love that. So how many dart frogs do you have living together?
We have 7 different species.
7 different species.
Well, I think there's 5 species in the one tank and then 2 different species in the tank right next to them.
Okay, cool. And multiple individuals of each?
Yes.
So they live well together as like a colony?
Mm-hmm.
How do they interact? Do they interact?
They do.
Okay.
So they just kind of, will be frogs and kind of go on top of each other. But otherwise, they usually live pretty harmoniously. They all get along. They all will kind of get their own food. We give them enough food to make sure that everybody's there and they're not kind of getting overcompeted or anything like that.
Cool. And is there breeding at all, or?
We had some Aratus froglets that I had kind of bred and raised up to bigger froglets and some Vittatus frogs as well.
Nice. Very cool. Very cool. And when we are talking about poison dart frogs, I know that there is actually a pretty big, there are a lot of them in the pet industry, and like legal pet trade. But what are your thoughts on that? And do you think they make good pets? And do you think they're easy to take care of compared to, a lot of other animals?
Yeah. Depends how people define making a good pet. Because if you just kind of want that pet to be able to like watch, it's a good pet. But if you really want to be like interacting with it and picking it up all the time, it would not make a good pet for you. They can be easy to take care of. Their temperature and humidity are kind of the biggest things to kind of really make their home acclimated to. And then just kind of offering them like food almost every other day or every day, depending on that frog species. So
okay. Cool.
Can be easy.
That's good to know because they are like stunningly beautiful and tiny, which is convenient.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Very cool. Are there any other frogs that you wanted to feature and talk about that you think are particularly cool?
I like the mossy frogs that we have.
Oh, yeah. Tell me about the Vietnamese mossy frogs.
So they pretty much just look like a little patch of moss, which is kind of how they got their name. But they do have one cool feature where that if they feel threatened, they play dead. So they kind of curl up into a little ball and just kind of, like a possum, just play dead.
That's amazing. I didn't realize, I don't think, how much variation there is amongst like species of frogs. I guess I shouldn't be surprised, but dang, that's really cool. Like, it's funny how I'm thinking, like you said, like a possum, and then, they're the color change, like a chameleon might do, or like a cephalopod will do. And yeah, it's just weird to think about like all these different adaptations that have all made their way into the world of frogs.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Cool. Yeah, I didn't realize there was such speciation amongst frogs. That's kind of incredible. And one thing that you said that I really enjoyed, I always like highlighting how the people who take care of animals really know their animals. And we're talking about frogs. We're talking about like dart frogs in particular, where you have a bunch of animals all together that don't really have separate names and stuff, I'm sure. And yet you're like, yeah, some of them are good climbers. Some of them kind of suck at it. And like, you were more gracious than I am. But I guess the best way to say it is that you the animals, even in a group like that, and even without names and stuff to help, you really get to know those individuals, don't you?
Yeah. So we can still tell some of them apart. Like the milk frogs, I had identified all 8 of them by their different markings. Like one looked like it had like a little heart shape on its head. One just has really big eyes compared to everyone else, even though they all kind of had big eyes. It's kind of like the shapes of their backs. So you can kind of eventually tell them all apart, even though you're like, they all look exactly the same to me. But I can tell them apart. So I did kind of get to know all of them, which is always fun.
That is really cool. So what is next for you? What's the goal? What's the dream? What's after being biologist 1 of fish and invertebrates? Did you say? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I would love to just, keep climbing up the ladder and learning more about all the systems and the animals here and being biologist 2, senior biologist even. That would be really cool.
Nice. And if you could pick one area of the aquarium to work in, what would it be?
Kind of like where I'm at right now at the Octopus.
Yeah.
I always feel like that's like a little extra special and you really get that bond with one of our animals.
That's very cool. Yeah, I get that. I really get that. I like to pretend that Stitches thinks that I'm its friend, but No.
Yeah.
Stitches does not know that I exist, despite having hung out with Stitches a few times. But
I'm sure he knows you.
yeah. But no, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I love that it's just the octopus, that you're like, you know what? Give me this whole string. Give me all of this work, because having this relationship matters.
Yeah.
I think that's really, really special. Very cool. Are there any conservation organizations that you would like to give a shout out to?
It's Save the Frogs.
I see we're going to be on brand here. So tell me about Save the Frogs. Let me guess. They help save the frogs.
Oh my God, yes.
Nailed it. Tell me more than that.
Yeah, they are one of the world's most effective conservation organizations that help with increasing frog populations.
Okay, very cool. Are they a U.S.-based company or organization? Or
Yes.
It's time now, don't you know? We've come to the end of the show, but there's one tale left to go. You're gonna laugh and say, oh no. It's time for the Rossifari poop story.
All right, so it's not frog related.
Oh, okay.
So diving in ocean realm, around all of our favorite turtles, I have just turned around, and then Old Green is just going past me and just letting it all out. Which I like to say it's the best case scenario, because you're just kind of in ocean room, you just kind of swim backwards a little bit and kind of wave it out of your hair. You don't have to breathe it in. It's not on your face. You have a mask, so
that's fair. Although it is in your hair. It's I love that it's Old Green too. Old Green. Of course it's Old Green. Yeah, of course. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time for doing this.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
So there you have it, folks. Really loved that interview. Thought it was a lot of really cool information about some really cool animals. And I really realized how little I know about frogs. How little I knew about frogs. But obviously, Colleen hooked me up with some information there. So now I know more about frogs. Yay! I want to say thank you to everyone at Adventure Aquarium for hosting me and for, letting all of this happen. We actually have 2 more episodes coming from Adventure Aquarium, and y'all, they are going to be very, very different. I love how diverse the jobs are at aquariums and zoos and these facilities in general. And the 3 interviews that I did for this series at Adventure are just 3 wildly different positions. And I'm really excited to share all of that stuff with y'all. So make sure you're back here on Friday for Zoo News, and then next Tuesday for the next one of the Adventure Aquarium episodes. I'm also going to take a moment here to thank all of my patrons, especially my Red Panda level patrons, Laura Schenk and Dr. Stephen Williamson, and to remind everyone who is a patron that you can go and listen to bonus audio from this very episode by going to patreon.com/Rossifari. One final thing is that I need to say thank you to everybody who contributed, either by donating or by spreading the word, or even just by encouraging me, to my Cheetah Conservation Fund fundraiser. That's a weird way to say it when you say it like that, but hey, that's what it is. It was a fundraiser. And it was also a fun fundraiser, because not only did it go really well, but we got $534 worth of donations. And don't forget that CCF has a doubling thing going on right now, which means Rossifari and all of y'all has now contributed $1,068 to Cheetah Conservation, which is more than enough to sponsor 2 livestock guarding dogs for a full year. So congratulations to this community for being amazing. I appreciate y'all so much, so very much. And remember, friends, the word credits backwards is Steiderk.
The Rossifari podcast is produced, hosted, and engineered by John Rossi. Editing and fact-checking by John and Dr. Zoe Rossi. Our theme song is Sevens by Nathan Burke, performed by Nathan and John. Interrupting John theme and additional voices by Taylor Isaac Gray. You can reach John directly on Instagram and Facebook at Rossifari, or by email at rossifaripod@gmail.com. Rossifari is part of the Daydreamer Media Network. Now, stop listening to me and go visit a zoo.